Hi, Jasmine and Olivia. It's Christina from The Upcoming. Congratulations on the film. Would you like to start us off by telling us what Seeking Mavis Beacon is about and what people can expect going in?
Hey, thank you so much for having us here. We're really excited. Seeking Mavis Beacon is a documentary that was 6 years in the making. It's a hybrid. What have we been calling it? A cyber feminist goose chase. We are looking for who we believe is the most important woman in technology. The model behind Mavis Beacon teaches typing. There was a fictional typing teacher. She's a Black lady. She's really cool. And that's how I learned how to type, and many people. It was the world's most popular educational software that ever existed. And we just wanted to figure out who the brilliant lady was on the cover. And that led us to into a spiral.
What were some of your inspirations, such as other films, books, music, games, that influenced the making of the film?
Definitely, I think like one of the core inspirations was The Watermelon Woman in terms of you have like a young filmmaker, young Black queer filmmaker who is like going through the archives and trying to, yeah, chase this trans fiction that she has of an actress who is only credited as the Watermelon Woman. She does all of this research and then it unfolds that, this woman had an entire like fabulous life as like Faye Richards. And I think that kind of wistfulness of like ultimately the Watermelon Woman not actually being real, it's a fictional story about someone who doesn't really exist, was like such a perfect tie-in to discovering Mavis Beacon and being like, what could be that larger than life story? And the larger than life story is, yeah, this multiple people's lives and like the kind of kaleidoscopic scrapbook that people put together through their memories and through their experiences. But there were other references too that came in. We were really inspired by Colleen Smith's Dry Long.
Yes.
So
Yes, there's three queer films that I constantly have to shout out when talking about this. So, Watermelon Woman, Dry Long So by Colleen Smith, and Chocolate Babies. And then there's three other films that I'll reference just stylistically. There are some content warnings, there are some trigger warnings. I don't politically stand by them, but cinematically, they are eye candy. So that would be Belly, really beautiful film. Rebels of a Neon God, love that neon noir. And I'll give it up for Uncut Gems as well. And those are all movies that I could watch on loop, on mute.
About the Mavis Beacon hotline, can you share what made you choose a hotline instead of like an email or a message board?
because we do technically have a form that people can fill out, but I think the hotline was important. One, because it allowed us to really step into the cosplay of like we're detectives, and like really put on the entire, do it up to the max in terms of like, okay, we've got the headquarters, we've got the hotline, now we're ready to go. And it also kind of helped us create an archive that was more three-dimensional because you can't sit everybody down for an interview, but there's so much that people will spill out in their recollections if you let them speak versus if they're forced to like write down what they're thinking. And yeah, so much of what we were able to uncover about Mavis Beacon and Rene Lesperance was through this kind of oral history style of like having real conversations with real people and like letting them like feel all of their emotions on camera and in the microphone. And so the hotline also allowed that to come through. And it would have been so different if using the archive in the film, if we had to like, I don't know, have like an actor read people's testimonies or like do it in some other way rather than having people speak for themselves.
Yeah, I think also it's similar to the film where it's like we could automate this, but also we want you to be able to interact with the people that are actually doing the search. So what's great about the hotline is like in a digital age where you are constantly being asked to fill out a virtual form and it's like, wait, who's collecting my data? Where is it going? If you call the hotline, you can hear it's just us on the other end of that hotline. And it's kind of funny. I think people expect, to be in conversation with robots. So like there were a few times where people would like call the hotline and prank call it and leave a silly voice note. We got one really ominous voicemail where someone was like, stop looking for her. And then we called the person back and they were so taken aback that it was real people at the end of the hotline. And we all laughed about it. And they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was just prank calling. So I think it's nice because it actually like puts a human on both ends of it. It's like, who is delivering the information? And it's just us receiving it. So yeah, hotline is still open, actually. If anyone didn't get a chance to call in and wants to even deepfake, you don't have to have known Mavis Beacon. You can call 575 Seeking.
Share your Mavis Beacon memories, real or imagined.
Yeah.
So in the film, the idea of the search for Rene being a wellness check of sorts was brought up, and there's been a lot of discussion surrounding how wellness checks are conducted in the US. And I was wondering if you two could share your thoughts on how you were able to check on Renee's well-being while respecting her boundaries.
I so appreciate you asking about that. I think that in the beginning of the project, Olivia and I, we're playing detectives, but we also are like anti-police. And so the phrase wellness check really allowed us to set the intention of like, what is it that we're doing here? The idea being that like, a lot of times when there's like a search and an investigation, it's like this carceral idea of like you are tracking someone down, hunting them down, right? Talking to different witnesses. They are a subject of interest. And so a wellness check allowed us to just like, again, make it more human and really communicate where it's like at the end of the day, our priority is to make sure that Rene, who modeled for the software, is well. But it's not also like, it's not a search and rescue. Okay, this is not an actual missing person. And we also didn't want to trigger audiences because, like there is a phenomenon of like missing Black women syndrome where, especially in the US, Black women go missing and no one really talks about it. And it doesn't get the same media coverage it does versus if a white person goes missing. And so, you're putting up these flyers looking for a person. We didn't want to also trigger audiences to think about Rene in such a gruesome context. And we didn't want to project those ideas onto her. And so wellness check is kind of the phrase that we developed. But even there's a point in the film, I don't want to spoil too much, where that phrase kind of gets flipped on its head. And we have to interrogate what it is that we're even doing here.
You two must have so much research and archival materials from the 6 years you've spent on the journey that you couldn't fit into Seeking Mavis Beacon. Is something else, a sequel, an accompaniment, or anything else in the works?
We definitely are looking towards a real like archival home for a lot of the like footage that we have that couldn't go in, a lot of the, even when it comes to like the history of Mavis Beacon Teaches Typing, there's old patents, there's old advertisements, there's old like manuals of just like the way that Mavis Beacon as a concept has been talked about through the years that we absolutely, whether it's in the form of a book or an exhibition, we're really excited to offer different ways for both like Mavis Beacon enthusiasts and also like media archaeology researchers to be able to kind of understand this lineage and legacy in like a new way. Yeah, in a way that might not necessarily make sense in a documentary format, but would be really, really useful in like a more like, multimedia presentation.
So we do want to share the information that we couldn't fit into this movie. And then Olivia and I are facing, we're really questioning what comes next for us. We have so many additional questions that go far beyond the legacy of Mavis Beacon and are just looking at like the representation of Black people online and like the preservation of internet culture. But to be fully transparent, like we are real people and the movie is based on our real lives. And so I think we're having a similar process that Rene herself had, where it's kind of figuring out like, do we want to pigeonhole ourselves into being like these two DIY e-girl detectives? Or do we want to pivot and explore other things in our career? So all of that is to say, yes, and like we have more questions. If someone wants to do a spin-off series with us, I will try to creatively figure out how we can unearth those mysteries, but also we want to take a step back, maybe, explore our own right to disappear, clean up our digital footprints. So there's a lot going on right now, and we are currently entertaining everything and keeping the door open.
Would you like to shout out the really cool typing game you have on your website for the Mavis Beacon enthusiasts?
Yes. So, Seeking Mavis Beacon, we have a website. There are a few really cool things that you can do, or we think they're cool because we're kind of nerds. So, we set up a typing game.
It's essentially you go on, you log in, you're able to like pick the color of your hands and your nails. And then, yeah, there's like typing affirmations that are in the typing game. Because, yeah, when we had the idea to do a typing game, very immediately we were like, okay, so someone's going to be typing something over and over and over again. Like, what on earth could it be? And so a lot of the affirmations, which most of them are written by us, are kind of on theme to the movie, but in terms of just like, yeah, stuff kind of thinking about autonomy, thinking about self-image and what it means to like be online and connected to community. And then we also, if you go to seekingmavisbeacon.com, you can find where we are rentable on demand. For folks who weren't able to see us at BFI or the rest of our festival and theatrical run. We are on our way back to the internet where the film was created.
So get in where you fit in, call the hotline, leave some real or fake news, go on the typing game, practice your typing speed. It will tell you your words per minute. We're trying to set up a global competition to find out who the fastest typer in the world is. So stay updated, follow us on socials, and tell your friends. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.